Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for African News with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, dozens of people are killed in the Nigerian city of Maiduguri in a double suicide attack on a busy marketplace. The bombers were two girls who first targeted shoppers and then rescuers who came in response to the original blast. Also, protesters in Nairobi carry coffins and crosses through the streets on Tuesday in memory of the hundreds of Kenyans killed in recent terror attacks. This after dozens were executed by Islamist militants over the weekend. Many say the government's not doing enough to safeguard citizens' security. And we take a look at a South African hospital that's opened a new heart unit that's in Cape Town, and doctors there hope that the cutting-edge technology will spread across Africa to help change and save lives. First up, dozens of people have been killed in the northeastern Nigerian city of Maiduguri in a double suicide bombing in a busy marketplace. Islamist insurgent group Boko Haram is suspected of having orchestrated the attack, as they have carried out similar ones in the past. The blasts were detonated by two girls, the first explosion targeting shoppers, and the second bomber reportedly screaming before blowing herself up as others ran to the rescue. Chika Odua is in Abuja and tells us more about Tuesday's attack.
Well, first of all, there was an attack in a crowded market in Maiduguri. Of course, Maiduguri is the capital of Borno State. The bomb went off around 11 o'clock, just before noon, and we understand that there were two female suicide bombers who walked into the market. The first one detonated herself, killing about 3 women. And as onlookers came to see what happened, the second woman now also detonated an explosive, and about 30 or so people died. The death toll has been increasing throughout the day as we've been able to identify more of the bodies. And right now, some of the vigilante fighters in Maiduguri are reporting that more than 40 people have been killed in this attack. And of course, this is coming just days after attacks that killed fishermen, again in the state of Borno. And dozens of fishermen were killed as they were on their way to a fishing expedition. And of course, all of these attacks have been blamed on the Islamic extremist group Boko Haram here in Nigeria. This is not the first time that Boko Haram has been using female suicide bombers to commit some of their attacks. There were a string of attacks in the city of Kano just a few months ago.
Now, the news: protesters in Nairobi carried coffins and crosses through the streets on Tuesday. This in memory of the hundreds of Kenyans killed in recent terror attacks. Many are still shocked by Somali extremist slaughter over the weekend of 28 bus passengers. Al-Shabaab fighters first singled out non-Muslims before executing them on the roadside. Since Nairobi sent troops into Somalia in 2011, Islamist militants have launched more than 100 attacks inside Kenya. Many Kenyans are increasingly frustrated by the government's apparent failure to guarantee their safety.
We need to actually change how we handle security in this country, and that only begins with getting rid of the guys at the top. Once we do that, then we can begin to map out a better strategy. These guys have been in office for 2 years, and guys are still dying in this country. Enough is enough, man.
No security. That's why we are doing this subversion right now. Our people are dying like chicken. Why?
Well, those protesters spoke to our Duncan Woodside, who was at today's demonstration in Nairobi. He tells us that many Kenyans are also questioning the police's commitment to fighting terrorism.
A lot of questions have been raised in terms of the security forces' response to the ongoing crisis. Not so much necessarily here in Nairobi. There are only 100 or 200 protesters on the streets today, but in the outlying parts of the country which have been more prone to attacks of late. So, for example, in Mandera County, where we saw this bus attack, this horrific bus attack during the weekend when 29 people were murdered, there has been a sense there that the security forces have been unable to control the situation. For example, the governor of that county said 2 weeks ago that reinforcements and more work was required to combat the work of Al-Shabaab. He said that not enough was being done at that stage, in a context where 10 attacks had been taking place in the previous 40 days. And obviously 2 weeks later we see this attack on Saturday where 28 people were murdered. So obviously there are concerns among politicians, local politicians, and people living in outlying areas about the security forces' inability to respond appropriately to the crisis, to the extent that during the night last night, a number of people in Mandera decided to not stay in their homes, but instead camp at an army base instead, because they were so scared of the situation.
Duncan Woodside there for us in Nairobi. Well, with only 6% separating the two front-runners in the first round of Tunisia's landmark presidential vote that was held on Sunday, a runoff now is definitely on. Official election results released on Tuesday put incumbent Monsef Marzouki behind Beji Caid Essebsi. He's head of the anti-Islamist NEYTS party that won earlier parliamentary elections.
Tunisia's national anthem played before the results were read of its first ever free and fair presidential election. Frontrunner Beji Caid Essebsi beat incumbent Monsef Marzouki in round one. In December, the two men will face off in round two. International observers praised the election as pluralist and transparent.
The Tunisian people renewed their commitment to democratic values in a serene atmosphere.
Essebsi has been the favorite. The 87-year-old has rebranded himself as a bridge to the future. His party is just 2 years old, and he's promised to restore stability, fight the rising wave of terrorism, rescue the economy, and do it all without the heavy-handed rule of those who came before him. But there is no doubt the octogenarian has plenty of ties to the country's checkered past with democracy. He served in 2 post-independence governments, and the current president calls Essebsi a throwback to authoritarian rule. Monsef Marzouki is a longtime dissident, an academic, and a human rights activist. His supporters say he kept his values that saw him installed as the Tunisian leader after the 2011 revolution, which ignited the Arab Spring. Heading into a second round, both men will be looking to widen their base. Key will be who can woo supporters of defeated leftist Hama Hamami. Also important will be who the moderate Islamist party Ennahda endorses. Though it's seen its popularity slip recently, it's been Tunisia's most powerful political force since the revolution.
At least 19 people were killed in Cairo after an apartment building collapsed suddenly. The building in Mataria district disintegrated into rubble on Tuesday morning, as many inside were still sleeping. The collapse highlights the long-time problem of shoddy construction across the country. Neighbours say the 7-storey building had several floors illegally added on. Well, finally, Cape Town's Tygerberg Hospitals recently opened up a radial heart unit, one of the first such facilities in Africa. Now, its first goal is to treat more patients in South Africa and then train cardiologists from across the continent. Take a look.
Every year, 50,000 South Africans who need advanced heart treatment can't get it because there aren't enough facilities or doctors. Cape Town's new angiography center could change and even save their lives. Until now, doctors have used the traditional method, inserting catheters through large coronary arteries. This can lead to bleeding complications. In the new unit, they enter through small blood vessels. This causes less pain, fewer complications, and a quicker recovery, meaning more people can be treated.
Yesterday, they just phoned me and said I can get into the hospital today, and they can do it, and I can just go home afterwards. Last time I have to stay here a whole week.
Private and public investors have spent millions of rands on the facility, but with patients needed shorter stays, the hospital is cutting costs. The center hopes to spread advanced methods to the whole continent.
We've made it our job to bring in colleagues from other countries in addition to the South Africans we train. For example, the last trainee that qualified from this institution was from Kenya, and we've just taken on 2 new candidates, one from Zambia and one from Rwanda.
In order to practice radial angiography, doctors need extensive training. They also need special and expensive equipment, which for now may mean many medics will continue to favor traditional methods despite their drawbacks.
Well, that wraps up African news for me, but do stay with us. Short break and more news and headlines from across the world coming up.